You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Howdy, music lovers. Welcome to Modern Musicology. My name is Alan, and we've got Stephanie and Rob with me. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
All right. Good to I'm psyched to talk about opening bands.
We should, since we have that planned. Before we do that, though, I want to get some listener feedback from this week. The first one, this is about our novelty records episode. It came in a little after last week's show that we recorded. And this is from a friend of mine named Kim McGibney. And she writes in to say, just finished listening to the novelty records. Yes, please do another one. Where was Spike Jonze? And for anybody not familiar, this is not the movie director that has a Z in his name. This is a recording artist from way back who his most popular song, probably his most famous song, is All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth. And he has a million novelty songs. And he did not even cross my mind when I was putting my list together. But she also mentions Ernie from Sesame Street, because Rubber Ducky was a big hit. Monty Python, Mel Brooks, and of course that classic I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred.
I worked that record.
I was wondering about that. And I'm sure that wasn't intended to be a novelty record at the time, but I think it sort of kind of not maybe became that, but it's easy to think of it that way.
I would like to because I wasn't part of the recording of that show, but I would like to do another one too, because I was thinking about like Flight of the Conchords. I don't know if you guys mentioned them.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Because they're amazing. And also like all the Family Guy stuff.
Oh yeah, true.
You know? So like there's a lot of stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And she says, and yes, please, a holiday novelty song episode. And that is definitely in the works. She then continues to say, could there also be a novelty bands episode? I was thinking about bands that weren't real bands, but had hit songs like Sugar Sugar by the Archies, I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family, Anything by Milli Vanilli. Hilarious. Shots fired. We actually did do that topic back in our YouTube show days before we sort of converted the show into a podcast. So I think that is definitely one that we'll have to revisit. And then some feedback about last week's episode about the hypnosis documentary. So Stephanie, you got one to read us?
I do. My friend Stephen Chopek wrote us a very nice comment. He said, dug the episode and loved the documentary. The cover for Elegy by The Nice is epic. The book vinyl album cover art is their complete catalog with essays and is absolutely fantastic. Amazing that their studio was in the same building as the Sex Pistols rehearsal space. Which is true. It's like, right. It was a rundown kind of shit space that they like.
I know, it's amazing that all that iconic art came out of that just awful space.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen.
And then one last one. This was a comment on our Instagram, and this comes from our lovely friend, Teresa Kariakis.
Yay!
Who just commented to say that her favorite hypnosis cover was Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. So, Teresa, it is absolutely lovely to hear from you. Thank you so much for your comment. And anybody who's not heard it should go and listen to our interview with her. It was one of our favorite ones that we ever did. She was so much fun. So thank you, everybody, for the comments and responses that we got from the past couple of episodes. If you want to send us some feedback on our show or comment on one of our topics, please email us at modernmusicology1@gmail.com or just leave a comment wherever you find one of our posts, whether that be Facebook, X, or Instagram. We are active on all of those, or just leave a comment wherever you're listening. And do us a favor and give us a rating. That'd be great. All right. Let's talk about opening bands. We have all seen 8 gazillion concerts, and I know we have a huge list of opening bands, both good and bad, both known and unknown. So I'm interested to hear some of your experiences. And I know, Stephanie, you were in a band that used to open for other bands and
Yeah.
probably had other bands open for you. So I can't wait to hear some of your stories on that topic.
Yeah.
So who wants to kick us off with, let's say, favorite opening band that you've ever seen?
I'll kick us off if that's okay. I just also want to say, like, it's funny. I was going through all my old concerts because I keep all my old calendars since 1984 and my ticket stubs and stuff. I was going through everything, and it's like it's so funny how I remembered a lot of the older stuff from when I was young, and I think probably very impressionable at that. When you're a teenager and your first concerts and stuff. As I got as it went on and I'm looking, I'm like, did I even see that band? Like, I could not
Oh,
remember
yeah.
half the stuff that I saw. Right. So,
Oh, yeah.
but I think the most obvious one that everyone's going to know that I'm going to say is when I saw the Go-Go's open for the Police at Madison Square Garden. That was on January 22nd, 1982.
Yep.
And that's because that's really what got me into playing music. That is why I started playing the drums. I obviously had known about them from MTV, saw them and saw their videos and stuff, but seeing them live was a completely mind-blowing experience. That it was to me like a double bill. Like, that wasn't like a opening band and you know, but just seeing them live, the whole crowd, everyone knew their songs, everyone knew everything, and people were just jumping up and down. The whole garden was going bananas. I think for an opening band, that's what more could you ask for? Everybody knew your stuff. And I think as their tour went on and their record became number one in the country, that probably happened to them more and more often on that tour,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I would say that was I can't think of a better opening band experience ever than that show.
So this kind of touches into a weird terrain of opening bands versus sort of double bills.
Mhm.
True.
My all-time favorite is in 1995 when I saw the Outside Tour with David Bowie
Oh, my God.
and Nine Inch Nails. And we were in one of the cities where Bowie opened.
Mhm.
It was fantastic. So I think that's still pretty incredible and amazing. And I still think that might be my favorite opening band.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's Bowie, I mean, come
Bowie.
on.
Yeah.
What about you, Alan? What's your fave?
Geez. I've got so many just weird ones.
So do I.
I've got, I don't know. I don't even know why I asked that question of you two, because I have
You
no
can't
answer
answer
for it. That's dumb. Here's the thing, though. I realize, I kind of pride myself on having a really good memory of the concerts that I've seen. Like, I've started in 1979. My first show was the opening show on Kiss's Dynasty tour. And I've seen a million shows after that. And I have a good recollection. When I was going back through my ticket stubs, I realized I don't have a whole lot of recollection about the opening bands.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of digging to come up with a list of stuff. So I was like, and I discovered stuff today that I don't even remember seeing and would never have remembered. So I'm going to go with, okay, this is a weird one. And I don't even think this really counts, but I think it's just the funniest thing on the list. And that is in 1983 and 84, when Yes was doing their 90125 tour, which was their biggest commercial success they ever had. So they were doing just this huge tour that was sold out everywhere. Their opening act was 2 Bugs Bunny cartoons.
What?
No band. They just showed 2 Bugs Bunny cartoons. And I'm certain that one of them was Hairway to the Stars. And, it was just wacko. And I was like, what is going on here?
That's so weird. What?
Right.
Wow.
So in putting together your list, what was your process? And did you come up with any surprises? Because I came up with a lot of surprises on mine.
Yeah, like I said, I just went through my calendars, and
I wish I'd kept that kind of calendar, because you have written down bands that you saw, who opened for them, on, I mean, it's just amazing. I wish I'd had the foresight to keep anything like that.
A few like earlier ones I forgot to write the opening band, but I mean for the most part I try to do that, I guess. So that was my process. I did come up with some totally weirdo, like here's the weirdest one that I found. This is from the Beacon Theater in New York. It was August 15th, 1989. This was the bill. Living Color, Boogie Down Productions, and John Cougar Mellencamp. Like what? Like, and I'm sure I can't even remember that I saw that show, to be honest, but I'm sure it was insanely good because those bands are all amazing. So,
Wow.
But how weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a John Cougar story from the opening band days too. He opened for Heart in 82, and Heart was kind of on a downslide at that point, and he was very much riding high. He was like on his way fast up the ladder. And I don't think it happened at our show, but at other shows, he would say stuff on stage like, I should be the one headlining and they should be opening for me. I mean, he was just a cocky shit.
Oh, yeah. He was
So,
really, really obnoxious. Yeah.
And I know he said stuff like that in the press. So that was one of my favorite ones because he was just such a jackass. What about you, Rob?
So I went through a couple different things. One, just shows that I had particular memories of that I remembered. And then I went and found the dates. And then also ones I remembered sort of either where I did interviews with bands or there was some kind of attachment to radio or press work that I was doing, or particular memories, some good, some bad. And I kind of worked around 10 or 12 things, and then it kept expanding and growing because then I was like, oh yeah, I saw this, and oh yeah, I saw that. And
yeah,
that was kind of my process. And I started thinking of, okay, what bands did I see that I do actually remember the opening bands? And for me, it's early in my career doing radio and stuff because back in the day, while all the other kids, Steph will appreciate this, all the other kids were trying to get on the headlining band's press list or guest list, I was getting on the opening band's guest lists so that I could go see the band. So like when I saw the Afghan Wigs and Nirvana, everyone and their brother was trying to get on the DGC list. I got on the Afghan Wigs list.
I remember seeing that show. Yeah,
I remember stuff like that. That's kind of my memory. When I saw My Bloody Valentine, I made it a point to get on the Dinosaur Jr. list. So things like that. So a lot of that is how I kind of remembered it. And some of it is just so ingrained in my memory as being a train wreck that I can't forget it. Like the Sisters of Mercy opened for Public Enemy on a tour, and they played the arena here, the old St. Louis Arena. And like any other arenas that were built in the 50s and 60s and still in use into the 80s and 90s, the sound was horrible. The Sisters of Mercy live now still sound like that tour, so it's kind of frightening. But I remember that one being so gut-wrenchingly horrible. And then I got to see, Public Enemy, and the sound system didn't matter. But then I remember seeing that kickstarted memory to when I went to see Public Enemy at Mississippi Nights, a smaller venue, years later, and Chuck was there, but Flav was like so out of it. He missed the entire show.
Wow.
So that was interesting. That was near the end of their breakup, right before they broke up too. So a lot of it's attached to memories and things like that. And then it was just sort of like hunt down the dates and things. Some of it I had, some of it I didn't. My ticket stubs are scattered like all over the place. I had an amazing collection of ticket stubs, but somebody burned them once, so I don't have them anymore. And but I wrote a lot of stuff down. I'm nowhere near as organized as Steph, but I did write certain things down, and I'm lucky enough that when I would remember, okay, this is when I saw Echo and the Bunnymen, I wrote down on a piece of paper when I saw them and put it inside the CD sleeve. So when I played on the radio, I'd remember. But now I'm doing everything digital. So
yeah.
So this was kind of a fun little exercise as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, I didn't recall almost any of my opening bands, and I was looking through my ticket stubs, and some of them say who the opening band is on the ticket. Most of them do not. So there were a few that I was reminded of, and I was like doing Google searches, and I was like, like there's so many bands that I still don't know who the opening band was, like In Excess. the first Heart show that I saw, when I saw Black Sabbath and AC/DC a month apart from each other, half of the Dio shows that I've seen. I saw Billy Idol one time. I saw Kansas a number of times, and I don't know who any of those opening bands were.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So I had a very short list until this afternoon when I thought, you know what? If I go on to setlist.fm, I can search by venue. And most everything I saw growing up was at the Lakeland Civic Center. So I just put in Lakeland Civic Center and I just scrolled down the list. And I found, because then, you know, if you look up REO Speedwagon, it just tells you what songs they played. It doesn't say. But if you look up the venue, you'll see the set list for the other artist that was on that same night. And that brought everything back to my memory.
That's so good.
Yeah. Now, before I did that, I didn't have anything for any of my Rush shows. I've seen Rush a billion times. And I couldn't remember any of the opening bands. But then I thought, you know what? I've got this book. They put out a book called Wandering the Face of the Earth, and it's a chronicle of every tour, a very, very detailed chronicle of every tour they've ever done, every show on every tour. So I just looked up the dates in my handy dandy enormous hardback book, and it has all the details about it. So for my Rush shows, and I would never have remembered almost any of this, just the first 5. 1980, their opening band was Saxon, and now that I see that, I was like, oh yeah, I totally remember seeing Saxon, but I had completely forgotten about it. In 81, Crocus. 83, the John Butcher Axis. 85, they did not have an opening band. 1988, apparently I saw Tommy Shaw open for Rush. Oh. I have zero, and you know, I'm a big Styx fan. How do I not remember seeing Tommy Shaw?
I know. It's because our brains can't retain this information anymore as we get older. There's too much.
Right. It's crazy.
That's what I was saying about, you know, when you're young and impressionable, those things really stick with you. I mean, that one of the things that I didn't see on my calendars, but I remember clear as day, and I'm sure it's in my ticket stubs pile, was seeing the Police at Shea Stadium. And so the openers were Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, and before Joan Jett, it was on stage was REM. And REM, I remember this. I was with all my high school friends, and we were so excited to see REM. It started like pouring. It was for their Chronic Town EP. Yeah, it was 1983. So I think Chronic Town was. I don't think the first record was out, but anyway, it started pouring rain. But a lot of people went inside, and we just were like, screw it, we're gonna just dance, and we all just danced in the rain. But they didn't play very long, and then luckily by the time Joan Jett came on, it has stopped raining. But that was a fantastic show, and I remember those, you know, like that was like, again, that was, to Rob's point, that's like a triple bill, you know.
Yeah I gotta tell you, one of the craziest discoveries that I made in this process, and I was thinking, you know, last week we did our show about the albums of 1993, and one of the ones that I talked about was Terence Trent D'Arby. So I knew I had seen Terence Trent D'Arby open for somebody. Could not recall who it was. And I was like, maybe it was Duran Duran, because I saw them in 88. And it wasn't, because I looked up their tour documents and found that the opening band was, I don't remember who it was now. It was somebody I have never heard of. And I have no recollection of seeing him. Like, it was somebody called like Pursuit of Happiness or something.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I'm an adult now.
I knew I recognized the name, but I don't know anything about them. So I have no recollection of that. But I was like, I couldn't think of any other show in around that time that Terence Trent D'Arby could have opened for. So when I was digging through my setlist.fm stuff, I thought, well, you know what? After I finished with the Lakeland Civic Center thing, let me look up the Sun Dome in Tampa, the University of South Florida, the Sun Dome. I saw a lot of shows there. Let me see what all's there. And that's where I found it. Apparently, I saw Duran Duran twice. I have no recollection of a second time seeing Duran Duran, but I remember very, very clearly seeing Terence Trent D'Arby. That was in 93, and that was on the tour where, you know, it was the wedding album. They're doing Ordinary World and Come Undone and all those songs. I have no recollection of that show, but I have a clear recollection of Terence Trent D'Arby.
I have no recollection of seeing Charlie Sexton twice. I only thought I saw him once.
Right? Oh my God.
Like once was his band and one was just him. And I'm like, wait a minute, when did I see Charlie Sexton? And I completely forgot about a bill that I saw at the American Theater that was right around when Gish, the first Smashing Pumpkins record, came out. It was roughly the same time as the first Pearl Jam record came out. And the Pearl Jam record was breaking. So it was Pearl Jam was the headliner, then the Smashing Pumpkins, and Fishbone opened.
Oh, man.
And Angelo climbed into the balcony of the theater and was doing like jumping out of the balcony seats and being stage dived. And I remember going to see this. Now, if you listen to this podcast, this may be a running theme. I remember seeing Fishbone and the Smashing Pumpkins and then leaving. But I've never seen an artist jump out of like onto a stage, run across people in the audience and climb onto the balcony and then jump. It was like, God, what are you doing? Yeah. And I remember seeing Veruca Salt and PJ Harvey open for Live. And we went and saw PJ Harvey and Veruca Salt and then left.
So speaking of live, speaking of weird bands, and my band, the Aquanettas, played a triple bill in England we opened for Live and Public Image. Now, that was the weirdest probably, except for when we opened for 9 Inch Nails, that was the worst and weirdest. But the triple bill with Live and Public Image was just it was wrong. Kind of worked, I guess, in some strange way, but it was also just wrong.
So you're saying it was wrong?
I'm saying Public Image is wrong. Live and us worked together, and we played with them a few times, like in Pennsylvania, and they were totally cool. But yeah, I think we worked better together than all of us with Public Image.
Yeah. Wow. Steph, didn't you showed us something from your calendars from way back in the day where you opened for somebody and you have no recollection of playing the show?
Oh,
who was it?
Jellyfish.
Oh, Jellyfish.
Oh, okay, so they're a band that I worked their records. It said my calendar said exactly this: Jellyfish and Us in Washington D.C. 9:30 Club, 3/29/91. Rob, is that the show? Rob says he came to that show.
My girlfriend at the time and I took the train down, and we stayed at this place in Foggy Bottom, which at that time was not renovated.
Oh yeah,
and it's like your typical it's like the hotel in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, basically. And I remember we talked to you, and you introduced me to everybody in the band, and that's when I got my CD signed. And then you got me.
Wait, did we open for? Did we really open for?
You opened for Jellyfish, yeah, and then you introduced me to Jason Faulkner.
Oh wow!
Because we sat, I
remember you and
I and
yes,
the Mongrel sat at the bar.
Yeah,
and we were talking to Jason Faulkner.
Like, you being there is more clear than that. That whole event. Wow. Honest to God.
Wow.
It's okay. I understand. You were so overwhelmed by being in the nation's capital that you were.
No, I mean, I like know when you said, "Oh, we took the train down," I was like, "Oh yeah," like that sparked a memory.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be like a really short train ride, but they had some kind of delay, and we got to the venue 22 minutes before it started.
Oh God.
22 minutes.
And of course, I wouldn't be able to text you and say, "Oh, we're still coming."
No.
Because you were going to meet us at the box office and give us our tickets, and it ended up you just left tickets at the box office for us. And we got there like literally 20 to 25 minutes before. So we didn't see you till after your set, but before the next set. And that's when you gave me your drumsticks that I have.
Oh my God.
Oh wow.
So yeah, wow. I mean,
it's okay.
I don't remember. It's just like, I couldn't even believe it. Jellyfish. I mean, like, they're one of my favorite bands too. I really remember a lot of the other bands we played with, but not that show. Is just a total, I don't know.
Because it's one of your 2 shows I saw, and that show was really, really tight.
Cool.
And the Chicago show was
good,
not. But the sound was like, I remember
the Metro.
I think it was Jill was upset about the sound.
Yeah, the Metro. That was a weird gig.
But you guys were great. It was just the sound was weird.
Thank you.
Because I asked you if you wanted to go see Cabaret Voltaire with us after that show, and you're like, "What? You're still going out?"
Probably because we had to go hit the road. But
I've got a couple of bands that I would never have remembered, and now that I look back on them, I don't know who they are. And so I discovered in my research today that When I saw Jefferson Starship in 1984, the opening act was Billy Satellite. That name kind of rings an incredibly vague, I don't know, but I don't know anything about who that is. And then I discovered that when I saw Stevie Nicks in 86, the opening band was Opus. Who the fuck is that?
Live is Life.
Oh, you know them, Rob?
Yeah, they had Live is Life, and they had one other hit after that nobody remembered. Anyway, never mind.
It seems like, I mean, now that I see the name, it seems like that's something that I should be remembering. But I don't know. So I'm going to have to go look them up and see if I recognize any of their songs.
You mentioned Duran Duran earlier, and the year before I saw them at the Garden twice it was June 23rd and 24th of 87, and Erasure opened both shows.
Oh, interesting.
And I only remembered that when I saw the fact that I had written it down. I was like, oh yeah, because I do remember. I mean, like, that was a huge show, and that was so energetic, and that whole show was just like, I remember the lights for some reason. But I guess because at the Garden it was just so, huge and energetic and stuff. But I wouldn't have said, oh yeah, I saw Erasure. But when I saw it in writing, I was like, it sparked the memory.
Right.
Yeah, I have a memory of seeing a couple things that completely I remember that I went, but I don't remember the actual shows because I saw Curtis Blow and Run DMC.
Oh my God, how awesome.
And I remember seeing Run DMC, but I'm like, I saw Curtis Blow? And then I was asking a friend of mine, I was like, you don't remember that? I'm like, no. It's like, yeah, they lost the guest list, so we just walked in. I'm like, oh, okay.
What?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Because the venue I was at, I could generally just walk in. I had a really good relationship with them. I remember, I know you talked about PAL. The first show that I was able to go to as a legal adult was Public Image Limited and Flesh for Lulu opened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was October 27th of 1989. I just turned 21 like 10 days before.
Mm-hmm.
And then later that summer, PIL came to an arena and INXS opened for them. It was very weird. But yeah, I saw Flesh for Lulu and they were fantastic. They were actually better than PIL. PIL was kind of a disappointment. I mean, it was just kind of like, dude, you put out a record, be excited,
Yeah.
But the guitar and the band was great. It was just, he was just kind of like odd and strange. I also had completely forgotten, and then it reminded me of another Steph story, because I remember when I was in town for CMJ in 95, I did come by to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you introduced me to some band that I completely forgot now. It was at Virgin that day. But I ended up seeing Sleater Kinney 4 straight nights in 1995 in New York. Once at the Cooler, 2 nights at the Fez, the Continental, and one other place.
Oh,
wow.
How cool.
And then so one night was Bratmobile opened, one night was Velocity Girl, one night was Bikini Kill, and I can't remember the last one.
Holy shit.
That's amazing.
I just remembered how great Bratmobile was. And that was the weirdest night of my concerting I did up until the year that Johnny Cash released the first of his comeback records with Ruben. American Record, that one. Yeah. Because he played CMJ and he ended up going on early. He switched spots with Wilco and Band of Susan so he could go on earlier. So I ended up seeing Johnny Cash. Then I jumped in a cab, went across town and saw the last 35 minutes of George Clinton. And then that ended, and I made the 1 a.m. set of Einstürzende Neubauten.
Wow. What a night. What a weird night.
That is my weirdest night of concert going ever. And I stood next to Diamanda Gallis and Ice-T at the Einstürzende Neubauten concert, which is pretty fantastic. But the Sleater Kinney shows, I remember, because they were like a huge buzz band. They were, and they were amazing. And seeing them in a small, really small venue, and I was just like, man, I'm going to go back and play this record for the kids.
That's a good point, though, that you said about seeing so many bands. Like, I was looking at some of my calendar entries, and it was, like this band and that band. And then I had a line, and then I wrote this band and that band. Like, I went to see 2 concerts in one night.
Yeah.
How did I even do that? Because I can't even barely get myself to one concert tonight, today.
I noticed that I did this a lot too. There was Ned's Atomic Dustbin opened for Jesus Jones. And it was the same night as Front 242. So I went and saw Ned's Atomic Dustbin and then went down and saw Front 242. Both of those bands ended up in the lobby at KCFE that day for interviews, which is also weird. Then I also remember I went to the Limelight, the early show was, I believe, Ned's Atomic Dustbin opened for the Inspiral, but the early show was the Inspiral Carpets. The late show was Tom Jones.
Tom Jones,
and it was friggin' amazing
because was it a convention? See, because for the convention,
no, this was at Limelight. This was
okay. I know, but was
not
it part
a
convention?
convention?
Okay,
no,
because I feel like when it was part of like if we were doing new music seminars or whatever. I was looking and seeing how many shows I went to, but it's understandable you plan your night to go see 3 shows or 4 shows because they staggered them like that too for conventions.
Yeah.
But, not when you just sometime randomly on my calendar, I was like, how did I see 4 bands in one night? But I guess I did.
Because I also remember too with the Sleater Kinney things, I think one of those nights I saw The Wedding Present late, but I remember bopping, and that was when I was hardcore. I can't do that shit now.
No, God.
But it was really great because bands, there was enough live music around. You could do that too, which was great. I remember going to see, I think, a show at New Music Seminar. I think it was New Music Seminar. It was Willem, that was an SBK record showcase. And it was Will and the Bushmen, then some band called Blur, and then Slow Dive.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were watching Blur, and she goes, "These guys are horrible. They're never going to be anything."
Oh my God. You're wrong.
Wow. Well, it depends on when you catch Blur because, at different points in their career, some of it may really not connect with, especially in America,
And I went to Seattle in 1995 to see a friend of mine who was getting married. And I stayed at this hotel, and Blur was playing a show at the Crocodile. And Pavement was opening for them.
Oh, cool.
So that was amazing. I remember that being great.
Show.
But Blur stayed in my hotel, and I remember getting on the elevator, and they were all there. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't say anything, whatever. And then I kept running into them on the elevator. And then the day before the show, they asked me for directions. I said, I think you can go here, but, because they're looking for some restaurant or something. And then I think it was Graham Coxon said, "Are you going to the show?" And I said, well, I'm not in. I literally got into town and found out about it. So I'm going to try to get him at the door, even though it's sold out. He goes, "What's your name? We'll put you on the list." Nice. So I felt all cool because I got on the guest list for a show in Seattle.
Yay.
And then years later, my wife and I went to Seattle, and Bob Mould was playing a late show, and then Animal Collective was playing later. And I ran across town to see both. But the problem was Bob Mould, even with earplugs, was so loud that it was pointless to try to see any other band that night.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Blew your ears out.
Yeah, because the guy from Anthrax was at the Bob Mould show, which I thought was weird.
Rob, did you see Bowie on the Glass Spider tour?
I did, but I do not recommend it at all, or do not remember it at all. I mean, I remember
I was there. I recommend it.
No, I mean, I remember. I think I remember a large chunk of it, but that was like really early in my concert going experiences. And I was a teenager, so it was like you didn't really know the gravitas of like I'm seeing David friggin' Bowie, right? It's like when I saw Iggy Pop the first time, I didn't realize I'm like it's Iggy Pop, and then and now it's like okay, drop everything and go see Iggy Pop. Well, I wish I could have seen that tour with more age on me.
Okay, but what about the opener?
I don't remember the opener.
I don't either. I don't even remember there being an opener, but I was looking it up on Wiki, and it said that throughout North America, it was either Duran Duran or Susie and the Banshees. And I'm sure I would have remembered them.
It was not Susie, because I had not seen Susie ever. And then they played a show in New York with the Wonder Stuff opening, and I got on the Polygram list through the Wonder Stuff to go see Susie. So I know it wasn't Susie. Are you sure
you never saw Susie? We can't remember things, remember?
Oh, I remember because I was with someone at the time that was going to stab me if we did not see Susie and the fucking Banshees. Yes. Oh no, I was under orders of death if I didn't get tickets to Susie and the Banshees. I think my favorite concert memory though was 1991. The Cocteau Twins played. They were on tour, and Galaxie 500 opened. And I got on the rough trade list to go see Galaxie 500. I was supposed to interview Gene Wareham, but he was detained, so I had to wait. So I ended up waiting during the sound check, which just happened to be Elizabeth Fraser doing warm-ups for 20 minutes. So I heard Elizabeth Fraser sing in a dark, empty theater for 20 minutes, which was pretty fantastic. Until after the show, when I finally did my interview with Dean Wareham, who was really, really tired. And he's like, I don't want to do it here. I need to get some beer. So my friend John and I were like trying to drive him to every liquor store we could find downtown, and we couldn't. I said, well, I know there's one out by my house It's open on a Sunday night. Let's go there, or whatever night it was. Let's go there. So we went, we got beer, and then taking him back to the hotel was on the way to my friend John's place's home. So my friend John basically dropped me off first, and he was going to take Dean Wareham. So then I'm back at and this is when I lived at my parents'. Dean Wareham had to pee, so he peed in my mom's rose garden. So that is why I remember that concert very well. But I remember Galaxie 500 was fantastic, and it's a horrible shame what happened to them as well. I remember seeing the Pixies open for Love and Rockets. This is before they broke. It was on right after Doolittle, and Love and Rockets had just had a huge hit with So Alive. September of '89.
Two amazing bands that I would love to have seen.
And it was like fantastic.
I think I saw that tour.
Yeah, it was fantastic. My first experience with an opening band, though, was I'd seen like a lot of bands in bars and stuff. And it was like, I'm going to see a small venue. But my first like big thing with an opening band is I remember seeing Simple Minds on the Once Upon a Time tour.
Oh, my God.
And the Call opened. And I had never heard this is before I made it a point to hear opening bands. I had no idea who the Call were, right?
Yeah.
They were fantastic.
Oh, I'll bet.
I had no idea who they were.
With them. Oh, no, the Fall. Sorry, I'm thinking. No, wait, the Fix.
No, the
Sorry,
Call.
forget it.
The Call. Yeah, because the dad of one of the guys in Black Rebel Motorcycle Club was Michael Bean from the Call.
Yes.
Yeah, and they were fantastic, and I'd never heard them before, and that's how I discovered the Call.
I bet both of them were amazing.
Yes, they were.
Oh my God. You were talking about that being before you were making a point to see opening bands. Here's my experience with that. Back when I was first starting to do shows back in 79, 80, 81, everything was general admission.
Yes.
So a big crowd would be there before the doors open because you want to rush in and get your seat. You want to pick your spot. Either you want to get down to the very front or you want to get a seat in the stands where you get a good view of everything. But the other side of that is that opening bands had an audience to play to.
Such a good point.
Once everything went to assigned seating, nobody showed up for opening bands. And I just think that's the biggest disappointment. Can you imagine being a band in that situation where you're playing in a 10,000 seater and you're playing to 1,000 people? You know?
I've seen shows. I just remember seeing some shows at the Garden. The opener is playing to, a couple thousand people. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's the biggest damage to up and coming bands. I can understand why venues went that way rather than general admission because it's easier to control and, secure whatever. But I don't know, man. I just think that was such a raw deal for opening bands.
Yeah. I remember going to see a concert and Luca Bloom opened.
Oh, cool.
Who was fantastic. But I don't remember who the headliner was because I enjoyed Luca Bloom so much.
That's funny because we were going to mention Bob brought it up because I told him the topic of our podcast tonight, but he remembered, and I didn't have this written down under my Crowded House entry, but we saw Rhett Miller. We got there early. We were like, I think he was a fan of the old 97s or and I knew some of their stuff and I liked them, but I wasn't crazy about them. So I wasn't jonesing to get there to see Rhett Miller, but it was him and an acoustic guitar. And I was absolutely blown away. Like, so glad I got there in time to see his full set. And he made me a fan for life. We have seen him since maybe like 5 or 6 times, like at City Winery or whatnot. But he just one guy on stage with a guitar was so entertaining. Usually I hate to say it, but I usually find that kind of, it can be quite boring. An opener with you and a guitar. I at least want to kind of maybe see a full band if I'm seeing a full band next also. But wow, he really, and also he was entertaining and funny. And that's another thing about opening bands. I kind of mentioned this on our last episode about Sheryl Crow opening for Crowded House, strangely enough. But she really got the crowd going so well. And I love when an opening band does that. I really love when the opening band is great themselves, but also, whether I know them or not, gets you going for the next, your main person that you're seeing. So
here's my favorite story about one person and a guitar. I used to work at the High Museum of Art. It's the biggest art museum in the Southeast. It's here in Atlanta, and we would do a college night. And you'd get people from all over the area who would come in, and it was like on a Friday or Saturday night or whatever, and it was a big deal. People would come and have wine and look at the art and hear a good band play or whatever. And so the first one that I ever did, the featured artist was Michelle Malone,
I worked her.
Really?
I believe I worked Michelle Malone. Wasn't she on
how fun.
Island? Well, sorry.
I'm sure she was. She was good buddies with Indigo Girls. And so she was in that sort of folk singer-songwriter kind of thing. And she was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed her. But the act that went on before her was this young nobody named John Mayer. And he was phenomenal. Like, just a fantastic player and great songs. And in both acts, it was just one person and an acoustic guitar, which I love personally. I love that stuff. But I thought John was fantastic. And I went up to him afterwards. I'm like, hey, do you have a band? I could be your drummer.
That's awesome.
I know, right?
That is fantastic. And I totally lied. Michelle wasn't on Island, but I saw Michelle with Indigo Girls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I saw
They did
them
a lot
together.
of shows together back in the day.
Yeah. That's hilarious. He went up to, I'll be your drummer.
Right.
John Mayer.
I did that a couple of times too. Back in my church days, there was this guy called Eric Champion. A lot of Christian bands play with tracks because churches aren't going to pay to bring a band in, So I was like, hey, do you ever tour with a band? I could be your drummer. Oh, and I'm not a gutsy person, but there was those two occasions where I just went up to somebody, you know what? I could be your drummer.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. And sometimes, it's weird because the openers don't always fit the band.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
And that's always when it's awkward. Like I saw Severed Heads and MC 900 for Jesus opened. Both on network, but kind of different, I saw John Wesley Harding open on a bill with Ocean Blue, and I forgot one other band, and it was kind of like he was a little too acoustic-y, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Much like you said with the guy with the guitar, but his wit really saved him.
Mm.
So I see some of that stuff too, where it's like, this doesn't really work.
One of the craziest ones that I ever saw, and I can't believe I had the opportunity to see this band, but in 83 through the beginning of 84, Kiss was doing their 10th anniversary tour, and it was their album Creatures of the Night. And they were coming out of a low point where they had just hit rock bottom, and they had just released Creatures was this like hard rock, really heavy album. And it was like a return to form. And this is the last tour they did with makeup. And we went to see this show, and it was a great show, but the opening band was the Plasmatics. Holy shit. It was so amazing.
I can't believe that you saw them. Wow.
I can't believe I saw them. And, that's one of those opening bands that I had no trouble remembering. Like, I remember when I saw the Plasmatics, and Wendy O. Williams, man, she was just insane. And she didn't, a lot of the things that she was known for, she didn't really do as an opening act, but a lot of their stuff, they did exactly what you wanted to see from the Plasmatics, and they were amazing.
Oh, that's so
cool.
And
it was just the whole show, like Kiss was in this kind of like pissy attitude where they're like, we don't need preachers and teachers and bosses telling us what to do, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, but then, and that follows after the Plasmatics, who kind of are an angry band anyway, and do a lot of destruction on stage. And it was just one of the most bizarre and violent shows I've ever seen. It was so great.
Did she have her chainsaw?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. It was amazing.
That's cool. Rob, you were saying, well, bands that don't go together. I was just thinking of a couple instances of when my old band, the Aquanettas, played with bands that we did not belong with. Well, I guess it's because we were on, a tour route, and our booking agent would just put us where we could fit, right? But it didn't sometimes always make sense.
Yeah.
But a couple times it was the 9 Inch Nails show. We were opening for Meat Beat Manifesto and 9 Inch Nails. And that was just the most, which I've mentioned before in the show, totally horrible. Of course, the Public Image was kind of a weird show. But we played with, what what was it? Not Lalapalooza. I forgot the name of the festival, Lalapalooza, and we played the second stage, and we opened for. Well, we didn't open for it. We were all playing together with such bands as the Jim Rose Sideshow Circus, which I don't know if you remember them, but they were not really a band, but an act. And he would like eat glass and then he'd throw up. And it was all this crazy. Like he did. It was
all freaks. Yeah.
It was freaks. Yeah. It was complete madness. Also Cypress Hill we played with.
Oh my gosh.
So weird. Like, but I remember them being so nice and so cool, like the Cypress Hill guys. And Jesus and Mary Chain, although they might have been on the main stage, they probably were on the main stage. But just some bizarre stuff like that,
Wow. That's so cool.
It's fun, funny memories.
I remember seeing the night that Bill Clinton got elected, seeing only because that was like the history moment. I saw House of Love open for Catherine Wheel, and then Ocean Color Scene was the first band.
Oh,
that's
cool.
so weird. I just looked at my list of Aquanettas. Like we played with House of Love a few times. We opened for them because Chris from House of Love put our 12-inch out in England. Like he put a couple of our, and Ocean Color Scene. Sorry, Ocean Blue. Does that Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other
Hershey.
band.
They're from Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Oh,
Look at
nice.
you knowing that.
Well, I saw them like 4 times because they were on a tour with like the Mighty Lemon Drops. They were on a bunch of like Sire put them on every friggin' tour they had.
Ocean Blue.
Right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And every show they'd open with, "We're the Ocean Blue. We're from Hershey, Pennsylvania." Like,
oh, well, there you go.
Plus, it's easy. It's chocolate and ocean blue. It's the only thing,
Oh, that's funny. There was a couple that I had not remembered that in doing my research today, I was like, jogged my memory, and I was like, I can't believe I forgot that I saw them. One was Red Rider in '83, and they had that big song Lunatic Fringe, and they were hot at that moment, and I saw them. Let's see, there was another band called Shooting Star that they had a big song called Last Chance, and it sounded kind of Kansas-y. In fact, I kind of rediscovered that song like a year or so ago and posted it to a friend, and he was like, "Oh my God, I always thought that was Kansas." It was not. It's called Shooting Star. And I saw them open for Heart in '85. I'd kind of forgotten about that. I saw Molly Hatchet open for Triumph in '85. That's crazy. One of the best bands I'd ever discovered. I saw Heart in 2012, and the opening band was Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, and they're very much this rootsy blues rock. They're fucking amazing. It was such a great show. God, I ate it up. It was so amazing.
One last one that I forgot that I had seen was Till Tuesday opening for Hall & Oates in 1985. Yeah. I was so like in love with Hall & Oates, and I remember scalping tickets. I got second row seats, and I think I was so excited by that I forgot that it jogged my memory when I saw it on the paper, but like that I did see Till Tuesday,
Oh my gosh. You were in love with Hall & Oates. I was so in love with Till Tuesday.
Yeah.
God, yeah. I still love them so much.
Oh yeah.
I saw Tears for Fears and Hall & Oates on that weird double bill tour they did. And Tears for Fears played first, and they were so amazing that there's no way they could top them. And Hall & Oates were just so flat. They were and that reminded me of my Hall & Oates story from the Limelight. I was at the Limelight one night with my girlfriend, and we were at the bar, and I went to go grab something, and I'm coming back, and Darryl Hall is like talking to my girlfriend, right? 6'4" Amazon one with a leather jacket and this little midget called Darryl Hall. And I said, "Hey, I hear John Oates is looking for you. Why don't you leave my girlfriend alone?"
Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a good story to end on then. We're going to take a super quick break. We're going to play a little ad for one of our fellow podcasts, and we'll be right back in 30 seconds.
The Air Station 1 podcast has been bringing your inner geek out to play for the past 13 years. Over this time, we've seen things change in the world of geek and podcasting alike.
And your friends here at ESO are looking to change also. We are now giving you double the fun by coming to you twice a week, and not just in audio, but now you can see our lovely faces up on YouTube.
Join Mike and Mike as we celebrate our 700th episode and beyond. Earth Station 1 is proud to be a founding member of the ESO network.
All right, we are back. let's do our picks of the week. Who's got something that they want to share that they've been listening to this week, or reading, or watching?
Okay, so I have never ever. Steph first heard this story in 1991. That I said, Stephanie, if Madness ever comes to New York, let me know so I can go see them. I've still never seen them, but Madness have a new single out called C'est la vie. It's from the album Theater of the Absurd, which comes out next year, and they're going to tour. And it sounds like Madness. I mean, they've aged very well.
Oh, cool.
And they know that they can't do what they used to do, so their songs kind of match that. It's not like we're old rockers trying to rock and it's sad. They just totally very gracefully aged and made it work. But it sounds like vintage Madness. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Also, I'm going to I know I talked about these kids earlier. Sleater Kinney dropped Hell this week. It's a new single called Hell from the album Little Ropes. And basically what had happened was, the whole album is coming out next year. It's an album pretty much about grief and loss, which instantly makes it popular. Carrie Brownstein found out that her parents died. Her mom and her stepdad were killed in a car accident while on vacation. And the people trying to notify her could not get a hold of her.
Ugh.
So the emergency contact for outside of Carrie Brownstein was Corin Tucker from the band. So it went from her parents dying to Corin Tucker to her bandmate. And so that is the backdrop for the album.
Oh,
so I think it's going to be really different than anything they've done before. I think it's going to be really interesting. And then the last thing I have coming out this week that we're recording this is OMD's new album, Bauhaus Staircase.
Yeah.
And the 3 tracks that they've done from it are all very different. Verushka is like a very sort of melodic, quiet number. And then they've got Slow Train, which is really poppy and funky and got like a couple singers on it. And then the title track as well. So that's out. And I recommend that as well.
All right, Steph.
I've been watching birds. What do you have, Alan?
Well, this week I was home when I was supposed to be in Cleveland, and I had to miss my Cleveland trip for some doctor recommended health reasons. Don't take a big trip. So I was going to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on Tuesday or Wednesday. I had no idea that on Thursday, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was doing a groundbreaking ceremony to do a 50,000 square foot expansion to do all these new things that they've got planned. And it's just amazing. But my friend who was there just happened to walk. I mean, because we were going to be staying in walking distance from the Hall of Fame street. He was with one of his coworkers, and the coworker wanted to just walk down and see the place. So when they got there, there was this ceremony going on with this massive stage, and the guests on stage were Sam Moore from Sam and Dave, Martha Reeves, Michelle Williams, and 2 of the Go-Go's, Charlotte Caffey and our lovely friend Gina Schock.
Yay.
And I was like, I cannot believe that I had to miss this trip when I could have met Gina Schock. And I could have said, thank you so much for being on our podcast last year. We really want to get you on again because you've got so much new stuff to talk about. I can't believe I missed that. The other thing that I missed was the next day, which I also didn't know was going on, is Trevor Rabin, who used to be in Yes, and I saw him on the 90125 tour when they had 2 Bugs Bunny cartoons opening for them. And he has a new solo album out called Rio, and they did a album release party at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I missed that too. That all leads into my pick of the week, and that is Trevor Rabin's new album, Rio. It just came out on Friday, and I've been listening to it, and it is fantastic. The musicianship is just off the chart. It is so good. The song arrangements are amazing. He does everything himself except for the drums. He has a really, really good drummer on the album. And just like his, in 1988, he did a solo album called Can't Look Away, which is phenomenal. And it's basically him and a drummer. So this is kind of following suit from that. I don't know yet if I'm going to like it as much as Can't Look Away, because I'm still getting used to it, and it's very different stylistically. But man, it is so good. I'm so impressed with everything I've heard from it.
That's
and
cool.
We'll be listening a lot more to really digest. All right. Well, that does it for us. We are going to be back next week. Hope everybody joins us then. And until then, Stephanie, why don't you let people know where they can find you?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook at Stephanie Seymour Music. You can find me on Instagram at there_r_birds. And I have a website also called therearebirds.com. And Bandcamp under my name. And then all the streaming platforms like Spotify and all that good stuff.
Sweet. Robert?
Hey, you can find me on the Weekend Justice podcast with needcoffee.com. You can also find me on Mondays on Antics on Louder Than War Radio. It is from 6 to 8 Greenwich time, 1 to 3 Eastern, 12 to 2 Central. All of the shows, all 30, I've done 30 now, which is pretty weird, all by my lonesome. They let me make an album without a handler. Our radio show without a handler. So yeah, that's at Louder Than War Radio. And if you go to their Mixcloud page, you can hear all of those as well.
And I've got a website called cosmiccreative.com, KOZMIC creative.com. And I've got my books there and my podcast there. Go check that out. All right. We will see you next week. Everybody have a great week. Keep rocking on. And I don't know what else to say. Just listen to a lot of music. That's all. I'm going to cut that, obviously.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.